Are we live?
We are streaming.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Before we start, I want to let you know that there is any Spanish interpreters that are needed. We do have that available. And I am really grateful for everyone to be here tonight. It's a lot more people that we thought we were going to come out to, so thank you. And as you can see, we're still kind of figuring things out, so I appreciate your patience while we're still figuring out the technical part of this. And so with this, this is part of just us gathering as a community. Oh, is my mic on?
No.
Mic on?
Now it is.
Oh.
One more time, she's saying, do it again.
Thank you for your patience. I know we're going through a lot of technical difficulties, and I appreciate everybody's participation in this, so I really appreciate that. And then we are doing the first community engagement out here. And so we will be figuring out a lot of technical parts. This isn't going to be a smooth process, but we appreciate the learning curve in this. And one of the things I wanted to note was that we do have a Spanish interpreter available, and I will point to that.
Buenas tardes, alguien que necesitara traducción en español, pueden venir a verme a mí para este equipo.
Gracias. And so this evening, we're going to have a lot of, take a lot of questions, we're going to do a lot of listening, and we are going to be hearing from the district on strategic initiatives, and so they want to also hear from you. So we're going to have that to begin with. And then we will have a little bit of time just to discuss things that we've been doing this year that is really important to note. And then the one thing I want to emphasize is just mutual respect. There was a tragedy today of Charlie Kirk, and no matter where you are politically, I think violence is never the answer. And so with that, I think these engagements are something very important to participate in and to continue to have freedom of speech and to continue to voice your opinions and your thoughts to your elected officials. And so we want to, the other thing we want to be mindful of is when you ask a question, please be mindful that there are others waiting for their chance to ask questions. So please be respectful and focused on their time and all of our time. This meeting is for you, parents, students, teachers, staff, and community members. Your participation helps shape our district for our kids, for our community. I want to encourage your perspective, listen to one another's, and I want to leave tonight knowing that your involvement does matter. And so I'll hand it over to Trustee Johnson.
Well, thank you, Trustee Dominguez. And I am one who's not very formal, so anybody in this room can call me Adam. The titles don't matter. We are all here to make sure our schools get better. And I'm really glad that you all came to listen, to talk, to share ideas. We have teammates in the back who are taking notes, so you can rest assured that the things that you share, that we capture while we're not writing them down verbatim, we will make sure that the questions that we don't know the answers to, we can follow up with you. And hopefully we can treat this as a conversation. I know people are watching online, but the people who are here, this is a conversation, and we want to make sure that this, as the first, we can set the bar really high, pretty competitive if you didn't know that. So we'll set the bar high with the great dialogue that we have, and then figure out how we can work together, because all of us together will make our district the destination district. And so we'll work together to figure out how to make that true in this specific place, and then across the district, we'll share our learnings and we'll make sure that we continue to get better.
And so we will hand it on to our amazing Christians here.
Hi, everyone.
You gotta say it so that I can see you.
As the trustees mentioned, it's our first meeting and figuring out some of the logistics, but thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Zero. I'm the Chief Community Engagement Officer for the Park County School District, and I am excited to lead us in a little exercise before we get to our question and answer session. I promise it will not take long, but it's really important to us. And so, we have a new Superintendent Ebert, and she just reported on her first 100 days to the trustees, and she's been very busy. She jokes that she has her running shoes on, but literally she wears sneakers a lot, and she goes many places. But now that she has implemented her 100-day report, and which is really focused on climate and culture at CCSD, now it's time for us to turn to a longer-term strategic plan where we will plan and co-design with our community the schools that we want to see for our kids. And she's made this really clear that she wants us to be a co-design plan, right? This is not just her plan, it's our plan. It's what do we want to see in our schools. And so we're going to ask you if you will participate. You are the very first people to give input, so we can't wait to see what you have to say. And I just wanted to say too, so we're entering into a public comment, public input gathering period. We'll be doing that through the fall. We'll be starting to draft the plan in like January, February, with the hopes of then having a final plan before the board in May, so that our schools will have something to work with for next fall. So that's the overall timeline. So if you see here, hopefully for our folks who are watching online, they can see this slide, and then for the folks here, there's a QR code. And I'm gonna ask you if you wouldn't mind scanning it on your phones. And we do have a few CCSD staff members here who are able to help you if you need it. But this is the beginnings of a survey with our community, and I hope all the folks at home can participate as well. But in the survey, we will ask for your information so we can keep you up to date on the strategic planning process. But the survey asks a really important question to us, which is, when you imagine the future of CCSD, what's one change that would make you proud of our schools? It's a good question, I like it. So I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to think about that and participate in the survey so that we're not giving you homework. And then I would love to do some directs too, of folks here, see what they have to say. And everyone is encouraged to participate in the survey, community members, students, staff, parents, obviously.
Kirsten, if we do a share, will we be able to have people share their first name if they're comfortable doing so? Again, I want to make sure that we can just feel like we know each other.
That's a great idea.
Do we have a third mic?
I'm happy to run it around if they want to share.
And for anyone who's just joining us on our live link, there's a QR code on the screen where we're asking folks to fill out basically a one-question survey, asking what's one change that would make you proud of our schools?
See the keyboards going.
You're a teacher. No. Do it well.
My mom was a teacher for more than 35 years.
No.
So I've
No blood.
gone through a lot of it.
It's also linked if they're streaming. If they're watching on the stream, it's also
Great.
linked.
Thank you. One of our team members just reminded me too, if you're watching on our live stream and for any reason your phone is not pulling up this QR code, or maybe you're listening on your phone so you can't scan it, we do have a link here. It's https://bit.ly/CCSD input. I still see people typing, so we'll wait a minute. And for anyone who's just joining us, we, if you want to scan the QR code that we have out on the tables here and up on our screen, and also on the screen for people who are watching virtually, this is the first step in collecting input for our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan that we are co-designing with our community. I very much want to hear community input on that. It seems like our folks here in the room have stopped typing. So I would love, Caitlin, I think you have a mic. Do you mind? Does anybody want to share something that they put into the survey about what's one thing that would make them proud of our CCSD schools? There's someone back there.
Matthew Winterhawk, Clark County.
Oh, oh, shoot.
Hello. There we go. So I put down on the form that parents should be involved in everything, that has a decision to deal with their child, and that transparency should be involved at all times. Full transparency.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Right in front.
Hi, my name is Debbie James, and I'm with Clark County. And my concern is they need to do more thorough background checks on future employees because of the recent incidents. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Becker, the resident, or down the road actually. What I would like to see is the district be a leader in solar power production. We have the parking lot space and the rooftop space to produce all of our own power, thereby saving over $100 million a year in utility costs. And Northeast Technical Career Academy also has a program for students to learn how to install solar. And the new South Career Tech also has a program. So I would love to see those things expanded so that we're preparing our students for jobs of the future.
Thank you. Maybe we'll do one more for the room.
Okay, I have number 6, is that okay? Sure. I'm not number cheaper. Okay, well then, equity and inclusion. I can save it for later.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks everyone who filled out the survey. Like I said, this is the first time you're hearing about the strategic plan, but I hope it's not the last time. A strategic plan is a document that guides all of our decisions, right? It guides how we staff, what we spend our money on, what we spend our time on, which is really what we spend our money on. So it's a really important document. We want to include the community throughout the process. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to our trustees.
Thank you. Thank you. Really quick before we open up again, I want to talk about what we did this year, which was the incredible efforts we made to hire Superintendent Joan Ebert. I know she's had just flipped this district completely from over its head from what it used to be. So I am extremely proud of those efforts. I'm extremely proud that we were able to, as a board, vote her in unanimously. So that was an incredible achievement. And then now we have, as a board, we're unified in doing our board governance, hiring our board attorney. I know those things seem kind of boring, but they're so essential in developing the foundation of a board and how we work as unity and moving forward in the district. So even though we don't deal with the details, we are definitely making sure that we are putting the person that we want at the head of this district and giving her the tools and all of the efforts that we need to do behind her. So yeah, that's something I'm incredibly proud of.
And if I could add, I think the thing that's been impressive with us to this point, we have a ways to go before we are the destination district. I think we've made it clear that we're going to be accountable for results. And so for me, accountability is incredibly important because you have to take responsibility for all the outcomes that happen inside of the school district. The good ones when we celebrate, and the ones when we don't do so well, we have to look at why didn't we do well. And I think that starts from us as a group of 11, where we're working with each other. We're having, when we have productive disagreements with each other, we are working as a team to be able to be better. So for me, that's one big thing. I think that's the second thing that I'm really excited about and that we've done well is the contract that we were able to get signed. While I know there were some things that we wish we could have been able to do better, it was a really strong signal that we are a different district today than we were yesterday. And so all we can do is continue to get better. And so that was one of the first steps that we took to be able to be better. And we, again, continue to take feedback around how we can be better. I know Lydia and I both answer every email that we get, and they come in really frequently. But that's the way that we get better is by listening, by being responsive, and by being accountable. So those are the things that I think are making us better.
Thank you. And with that, we'd like to open it up to you guys. We're here to listen. So maybe we can have the mic in one spot and, or if the mic moves around. I don't like to move around. It's like family style.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much for having us, and I really, truly do appreciate the designation district, because I feel like it could be, there's plenty of parents who are engaged and want the best for their kids, that's why we have. My question is more specific to my district. I have a fifth grader at Divish right now, and when we were there, we were told that the school was one of the best. And because it's one of the best, it has 1,152 students in it. And the junior high is Escondido, that's where my child is going to have their next home school. Escondido does not have the same reputation as Divish. And I want to know, what is the school district doing in order to get that great reputation that Divish has? How is Divish or any of the other elementary schools working with Escondido in order to bring them up to that level? Because eventually, if my child doesn't get into a COSA seat, doesn't get into a charter school, doesn't get into a magnet school, and no one wants to send their kids there, who mentioned Escondido? And people go, oh, that's your home school? Because it has a reputation. So what is the school board doing in order to get the elementary schools who will be feeding that school to bring it up to the same level? Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the question. I know this is what it's all about, advocating for our kids. And as a board, we are here for policy. We're here to advise our superintendent. She's our one employee. She's got 11 bosses, but she takes feedback well. And I know I've heard that concern regarding Escondido. I'm not in a direct position to be making the changes. However, I know she's taken action on what's happening, and I know that it's been in a positive move. And so it's kind of difficult for me, but I definitely love to talk with you further about it. But yeah, those things have been brought up to me. I've brought it up to our superintendent, and I know she's had some action going on.
I think a couple of things are true. One, every school needs to be a great school, right? So no matter where you decide to live, you shouldn't have to think about, if you want to go to a specialized program, I know, Principal Will is here, she has a very specialized program, so my child, he lives in Ward 1, if they wanted to come to Northwest, the coastal process is great because of that. But my child should also be able to go to Clark, which is in Ward 1. I think one of the things that I'm excited to see come to fruition is Superintendent Ebert's, in our 100-day plan, she talked about the core four, the 4 pillars. And one of those is middle school mathematics. And it is an incredibly challenging thing to be able to move the needle in middle school math. So what we've seen over the last few years is that we have really strong elementary, across the board, across the district, we see strong elementary outcomes for ELA and for mathematics. And then we see a dip across the district. And so I think her focus on 2 things, 1, math in particular, but then 2, making sure that she and team are looking at the schools that have the farthest to go and putting the most emphasis and resources in those spaces. So I think that is the way that we're going to see the difference. And it's not that she's going to stop paying attention to high performance schools like the Sig Rogiches of the world, but she is going to make sure that if a school is here today, and I know we haven't gotten our data just yet from the state, we're still waiting on it. But if a school is not performing as they should, how do we make sure we use the resources that we have to give them the extra support that they need? So that's going to look like in practice. It's going to look like that might be additional out-of-school time for students and providing additional supports for students in those spaces, providing additional teacher training so they have the skills that they need to make sure that they are continuing to provide the instructional needs for students who have farther to go. So it really is about and I hate to use sports analogies, but about the blocking and tackling of the everyday, which is we have to make sure that we are figuring out where the gaps are with students. How do we support those students with the extra instructional time? So the tier 1 instruction, so like that's the tier 1 is like when we're in a classroom together, everybody gets that. And then if I'm a student who needs additional supports because my teacher has determined that we need additional supports, I get the out of classroom supports, tier 2 instruction. Then if I really have a long way, tier 3 instruction where I get additional supports on top of that. But that costs money and it takes time. And so figuring out how to layer that in every single school is going to take time. But you're right, we want to make sure that Escobedo is just as desirable as every other middle school in the district, but it's going to take a little bit of time for superintendent and team to really make sure that all the structures are in place to make sure that happens. So we're going to work together. We're going to keep at it every single day, and we're going to continue to report on how we're doing as well. So we don't want you to think it's going to go into a black box and we'll say, well, we figure out how. But we're going to be very, very clear about this is how far we've gone this year. This is where we're going to go for next year, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to those results.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Here we go.
I know. I gave mine up. Sorry.
I'm on the inside of the council, and I'm coming in from California. I've been here 18 years, but I make a point of touring the distinguished schools of California. And the distinct difference that I see is limitations placed on us when we're teaching math, for instance. You're using this program only, but the inconsistency within one building is so significant. I'm coming in with an architecture degree, I have a master's in architecture now. It's not just teacher training, it's the flexibility to bring, an architect in or somebody in that children can connect to. It's having the flexibility to give them that time. I have to squeeze it in 7 minutes and move on to the pace. That doesn't fly with me, because the biggest difference that I see for distinguished schools is they take a moment, that teachable moment, and carry it out. Their plans are sometimes written on the board, but I see engaged children. I see children performing significantly lighter, and I'm really seeing rules to reach that. But I have time constraints, I have paperwork constraints, I have constraints when I have to do television. I want to see more flexibility and creativity, and I want to see something cohesive put in place beyond just teacher training. I think the teachers are screaming, like, okay, we're using visions, but, that's kind of just slowing down their program. And I would really like to see improvements and more flexibility, so some kind of an outline that kind of makes it more peaceful district-wide.
Can I ask what school, are you in middle school or high school?
I am elementary.
Elementary school. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I love that school. It's really essential to know, because I don't come from education, so it's always helpful when I hear from an educator's perspective, what they need, what the things that they're saying, their concerns, their challenges, because then I can turn on my policy mind and go, okay, where does it fit in the scheme of everything? So that I appreciate when I always hear from an educator. And the other thing I've also learned is that having like a specialized person is very expensive. And so having, like here we're at Northwest CTA, having an engineer, having a person that's certified in medical or construction, it's hard to retain them here in our level of education, because we're not going to pay them like the industry is going to pay them. So that's probably the most difficult part. What I appreciate is that we're opening up with our superintendent and our team is opening up partnerships with industries here locally. I know right now it's kind of been on an individual silo basis, so like individual schools maybe having connections with a welder or with a local plumber, and so they'll come and they'll speak to kids. But yeah, we definitely need to open this up to making sure that we are connecting kids with those specialized industries. And just, not just like for them to, learn that industry, but also just to be exposed to that industry. So that way they understand, like, there's so many different areas you can go into, beyond this and that, you can go into plumbing and all the things. But I definitely appreciate your comments and the flexibility of your lesson plan, because I know sometimes even like it's down to the minute, if I believe, like if my understanding correctly. So that's something that I just learned too. I know there are a lot of things that the superintendent is looking at. I can't say, to be firm, there's nothing I can say that, oh, we are doing this, but I definitely am gonna take that to her and say that we are hearing, and we would, I had this teacher come and speak to us, and I know she's gonna be watching, but I think the notes are more important to say, hey, this is these are the hindrances we're seeing. And yeah, I know they made some good changes with the training this summer. They did some good things. Hopefully you experienced that. Good. And I was grateful that those changes came so quickly, even though she had just taken office. So I appreciate that. But it is slowly progressing, and it sucks because we want to move faster. We want to move with you. But it's hard because we are moving as fast as light speed will allow us. So as fast as the internet speed will get us there. But yeah, I'll leave it to that. But yeah, thank you for your comments.
I guess the only thing that I'll add is, my hope is that you're being able to be in touch with Dr. Welsh, Dr. Jesse Welsh, about the way that teaching and instruction looks. I know that he's taken a long, so for those who may not know, so the way the superintendent has designed her team, she has herself as kind of the chief executive, and she has two deputies, one who's over business operations and the other one who's over teaching and learning. And so this is Dr. Welsh, who's over teaching and learning. And he this summer, he just talked about, he took on professional development, and he's open to try to figure out what are ways that I can work with teachers to figure out what is the best way to do two things. One, I want to make sure that he's thinking, I want to make sure that I'm maximizing your skill and your talent, make sure you are able to lead and teach in the classroom with authenticity. And he wants to make sure that we cover the content, because at the end of the day, he doesn't make the rules for the state. The state says that, third to eighth grade, you got to take the SBAC, and you have to be able to know this. By the 11th grade, you have to take the ACT exam, and you have to be able to demonstrate that. And so he wants to make sure both things can be true. One, your authenticity and your genuine teaching skill can come out, and that the content is covered across all schools. We just talked about Escobedo, how one school performs differently. So he has to make sure that there still is some structure, so that at the end of the year, when he looks at the performance of all students, whether you're on the east side or in Summerlin or on the mountain, everybody has been able to grow, and everybody is moving towards the larger target, which the state has put in place for us. So I certainly encourage you to reach out. He's very approachable. I know there are plenty of structures in which he and whatever gets put in place. But every email that I've seen, that I've been on, that he's had a suggestion, or he's been giving feedback, he responds within days. So my thought is, if there are some concrete solutions that you already have, as you thought this out, I'd suggest you reach out to him. He'd be happy to take those into account as he's making his plans for what comes next.
Hello, my name is Maria. I'm a parent of a child at Betsy Rose Elementary, which is 3.8 miles away from Divish Elementary. And our enrollment is less than half of Divish's. And that has been a point of contention at our school because they've lost a lot of the budget. So they've had to let go of a lot of staff, teachers included. We just lost one of our assistant principals. They actually announced that today. Probably because of the budget allotments.
Our principal expressed that he was campaigning to have us become a COSA school so that we could get enrollment from other schools. And that on all fronts, it was not approved. I also want to note that there are 2 charter schools that are in the same neighborhood, in the same zip code as our school, that are pulling students consistently from our school. And so our enrollment is very low. How can we make sure that schools like ours aren't suffering these deficits and losing valuable staff members, valuable teachers, lowering our school score? Because our school score has been reduced by like 3 or 4 points over the last 5 years. It's a great school, the students are doing well, the teachers are amazing, but they're not supported, they're not being heard, when they're coming to the district, when they're asking to become a COSA school, so that their enrollment numbers back where they need to be. And, is there anything our community can do? What can we do? How do we campaign for this? How do we support our school other than just giving money to them? Because they cannot use our money to pay for the salaries of the teachers and the staff members that we need. And also I agree, along the lines of the question in your guys' survey, what is one thing we could change? And I think that would be competitively compensating our teachers, so we have good teachers that are motivated, that want to teach, instead of dumping money into technology, into these smart boards. We need good teachers, and those teachers need good salaries so that they can survive up here in Las Vegas. That is what we need more than anything. That is the number one thing. Compensating teachers competitively so that they can do a good job teaching our kids and making us that destination district. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming out here. Wow, you touched on so many things, okay.
All at once.
I need to start taking notes. So I know, going back to, my role when I was in the ASAC committee, and we would look at enrollment rates, we were looking at capacity rates, and there are some hot spots, right? There's some spots that are just, over capacity. And then there's spots that are under capacity, all the way to, I think the lowest I ever saw was 40%, which is very scary for a school. And that is the, if you've been following a little bit, that is the trends happening nationwide, is there are lower birth rates, and so there are lower capacity enrollment levels occurring. So our enrollment this year was lower than expected. And it's due to all sorts of things, right? Lower birth rates, I honestly, I believe in your parent's choice to do whatever you'd like to do with your student, whether it be homeschool, charter school, or public school. Obviously, I'm going to support public school, but I absolutely support everybody's choice in that. The other part is when you have lower enrollment, that's lower funding, right? That's lower students. We receive funding based on enrollments. So that is definitely tied together. So it's harder on a school when they have to start thinking about, am I going to combine classes? Am I going to combine resources to making sure that we can still keep all of our staff paid or retain all of our staff? So those are hard decisions that are being made. And I know just moving forward into this year, we've had really low teacher vacancies right now I know I got a list, there was a lot of numbers there, but there was very low teacher vacancies that we have. What was it? 242, which is great. Which in the scheme of things, right, when you think about this is an enormous district. You have 44,000 employees. So when you have 44,000 employees that are obviously being paid, we're all working towards the same mission. The mission is the kids. And so making sure that they have the resources to be educated and how do we best do that. So recently the Nevada legislature just met and they just ended their session. They did put in, I can't remember the bill, but it was to open up enrollment. So they have open enrollment, COSA, and so that's for everyone. Your principal was likely talking, I don't know what he was, I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but he was, a lot of the schools I know have been trying to pursue kids that maybe had left or families that had left or wanting to open them back up to this area. And so that's probably what he was trying to do, is trying to solicit kids back in or just say, hey, we're here if you want to come here. So COSA is open now. So it's open to everybody. It's not going to be limited anymore the way what it used to be.
Is that at the of this year or next year? Or is it last year?
This is as of this year, right? So this fall,
Current year.
this current year.
So then any students can choose their school, any parents can choose their child's school.
Yes. Yeah. Transportation is different story. Transportation is still limited to the area, your zone. However, you know, I know some people are like, oh, I work, like me, I was in the military, so I worked at Creech Air Force Base. I took my kid to Indian Springs. And so that was something that I used to do because I was driving there anyways. So I know some parents live up here, but work in Henderson. So they take their kids to Henderson. So, it's kind of it's a family decision, truly, you know, to make. And so it's not something, that we as a district can impose on anyone, but, yeah, it is a family decision. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question about like, what do you do? So I would be interested to understand how a school 4 miles away would have one, it sounds like it's overcrowded, another sounds like it's under enrolled. I imagine there may be something, what's your name?
Terry.
Terry talked about the reputation of her school. And so I imagine that may have something to do with it, but also I don't know why we have a structure where we would allow for one school to be over enrolled and another school to be under. So we can certainly kind of take that back and see what the mechanics of that are. The second part is, though, you talked about the 2 other schools that are in your neighborhood that are pulling kids from your school and to their schools. I think that goes back to our work as a district to become a destination district, right? So from what I understand, I would imagine a parent would say, I want that school because they think that is a better choice for their child, but they don't necessarily know that your school has all of the things that they have that make it a great school. And so we have to be better as a district to make sure that we're communicating all the great things that are happening in our district. And not just at your individual schools. I'm not trying to throw your principal under the bus. But what I am saying is that part of our job as a district is to make every family recognize the Clark County School District is a great place for my child to be enrolled. But if you opened up the newspaper today, you might not get that impression about our district, right? And so that's our responsibility. So we, as trustees, get the opportunity to do things like this. We also get the opportunity to go talk to media and help them understand the value of our school district so that when a parent who doesn't know, who's coming to enroll in their kindergartner says, which place should I take my child to, the charter school down the street or your school, they would say, I've heard about CCSD and all the great things they have happening. And so they want to choose that. So that's on us to do. The other thing you mentioned is teacher compensation. And yes, we are working to make sure that we can provide the best compensation. We've become incredibly competitive on the West Coast with the new contract that we have, and while we have a ways to go, we can always compensate teachers more. Another part of our responsibility is figuring out how do we get more resources put into the school district from the state. And so it's not because we are like penny pinching, it's because we are trying to figure out how do we stretch the dollars that we already have. Our suggestion is we need to grow the pie and have more dollars placed into the system. This is not to say that we aren't grateful for what's already been done. What we are saying is that if we want to see the outcomes that we want, we have to invest more and continuously. And part of the way that we invest in that is the great people who are doing the work every single day. I'm sure you've been inside your child's classroom and you see how hard your child's teacher works, how hard their assistant principals work, how hard the principals work. We are not compensating them just yet in the way that we should, and that's because we don't have the resources that are required to do that. Again, that's our job, along with the superintendent's job. We have Marie Nice is here and the teachers union, all of us working as a unit to go talk to our state legislators to ask them, or not just ask, demand from them to invest more in the one thing that's going to make sure that our community will be better for 100 years into the future is the children who are in these classrooms. But that only happens if we are a united front and have a really good, compelling story for them to understand why they need to invest more. And we can show the results. Right? Like no business ever has said, please give me your investment without being able to show results. We have to be able to do that. And part of that is what we're doing right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name is David Gomez. Some of you know me. Trustees obviously do know me. Very outspoken and unapologetic. Yeah, I didn't do that. So I come from the east side and the west side. I have boots on the ground. Sometimes I feel like I'm part of the game. But one thing I can't figure out is if you give me 100 years to build a school district, I'm gonna build something that's monumental. Something that's like what we like. It can take 100 years to do it. But it just takes the right minds, the right ideas, and the right vision. Why haven't we got that far? And then when we talk, that's one question. Then when we talk about bringing quality educators to our schools with better pay, sometimes when I look at the consent agenda, I see teachers making $100,000+ a year even in some schools. I'm on the SOT at Rancho. We don't pay a math teacher $100,000. But yet we still have $10 million left over and we didn't suffer. So how are we gonna get people to come to our area when they don't wanna be next to some of our kids? Because I admit, some of our kids are very rude. Some people wanna be away from those type of kids. They don't want their children to remain home with them because they are very, very dysfunctional at times. Not all of them are. There are a lot of great kids in our area, but some aren't. So how are we gonna get quality educators to come to Roy Martin, to come to Sunrise Acre Elementary, to come to Hollinsworth, to come to Matt Kelly, to come to Fitzgerald, to come to Tolan? And then when we're closing down elementary schools because I'm on the FMP and the DPG, I know what's going on. We got some elementaries with low enrollment rates. So how are we gonna get them to come to our area when trustees, I'm sorry, it's not your guys' fault. This has been going on for years. This is absolutely not your fault. But it's been going on for many, many years. They throw this thing in, they say, approve it. But nobody really is able to question, why are we paying this person this much money? Why are we doing this? Because if you do, you're calling them bad. They get mad at you. They get upset with you. They say, this is not where we have this conversation. But they should allow you guys to really question on why we can't get passionate and quality people to come to our area when also the Title I comes from our area. The ELA comes from our area. We have so many different programs in our area that fund the district. We don't have six-figure income parents out there. So how are we gonna get them to come there? And why haven't we figured out in over 100 years?
Thank you for the question. There's a lot to that. So, I mean, even 100 years ago, Clark County wasn't where it is now, or where it's going. In 100 more years, it's gonna be even, I mean, we're gonna take over the state, I think, but it has expanded so much in even just 20 years, thinking back. So I know every time I talk to somebody, they tell me this used to never be here. This used to be the desert. So, yeah, it's expanding like fire. And that's not on, your question. It's very important, but it has expanded in the last 100 years. And I think even in education, we've, just looking back 50 years, they weren't really talking about strategic planning, even maybe 50 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. So that's a new thing, right? Today, as we look forward, and David, I really appreciate your advocacy because you come speak to the board all the time, and I appreciate you always advocating for your area and always advocating for people in your community. So, and I never get to thank you because you know, it's not a back and forth. So I really appreciate that. And you had mentioned about all these schools that are, you know, that have low vacancies, and they have low enrollment rates too. And these are hard questions. These are the answers that we want. These are the concerns and challenges that we want to know from you is what do you think about where do we put our resources? Those are hard questions to ask because nobody wants to close the school down. But when you think about, are we going to expand on one school and throw all our resources here? Or are we going to start splitting up our schools and have schools struggling where they do have low enrollment rates and then they're looking at having to let go of teachers? And that's not something we want to do. So these are hard questions and sometimes even elected officials don't want to answer those questions. And they're hard decisions because it's not a pretty thing. It's not politically, in a way to help you in any way politically. So, and that's why I want to hear from you as a constituent, like, how do you feel about that? Because that is where we are today. We have expanded and now, even 100 years ago, we didn't have the cars we had. We didn't have the communication structures that we have now. So now that we're mobile, now that we're online, parents are moving their kids around. Parents have the access to do COSA now. What is the priority that we want to put forward to our district? And even though that is a hard conversation, I know I'm willing to hear, do we want to shut these schools down or do we want to keep them open and try to revive them in some way? That's a difficult decision. And it's going to take a lot of deep thought for the community. And it's going to come from the community. It has to, because, we're the taxpayers. We're the ones that are going to live with these kids when they grow up. Someone's got to live with them. So yeah, this is our kids. These are our kids that we're going to have to worry about. So, and from all levels, right? From the medical field to dealing with if they work at the DMV, if they work in the government offices, if they find a job at wherever here in the community, we want them to stay here, but we're going to have to deal with them. So we need to figure out as a community, what do we want to do? So I'm going to leave it open-ended like that, but that's where we are. So, and thank you for your advocacy. You had a second question too?
How to recruit more teachers.
Oh, teachers, yes. Teacher recruitment. To that area, yes. I know we have just done incentive structures. So there are schools that have been identified that were just recently approved. So in the CCA contract. So there are schools that have been identified where if they are a Title I school, if they are historically low vacancy, they have an incentive like pay structure for those teachers. So that's the way they've tried to incentivize them to come into that school. And that's fairly new. So we just signed that like 2 weeks ago. So, a week ago? Yeah. Oh. Oh, well, right. Well, let's just go.
There's one in the back.
Here, you take one.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I also have a child that goes to Betsy Rhodes Elementary School, and I'm going to kind of touch upon what both of the parents have said here. So number one, I kind of want to express my frustration because we purchased a home a couple of years ago when we were zoned for Betsy Rhodes, and the school was rated a 9 out of 10. So we knew that that was going to be, a great school to go ahead and send my son to. It's disappointing when we see the grade. It's disappointing to see the optics that CCSD has, just because I know that there was a study done that compared the testing and compared stuff to all the elementary schools in comparison to like the charter schools, and CCSD had better test scores. They have stronger scores in leading areas and stuff like that. But then again, you look at the school, and our school has a 5 out of 10 rating, and it's no longer desirable. We have half the enrollment that Divish has because we're not desirable. And our test scores, they're great, they're fabulous. These kids are excelling, they are learning and stuff like that, but it's not reflected. And that's frustrating as a parent, that's frustrating as a homeowner in that community. You can add property values into that as well, because again, it's no longer desirable. And it's really frustrating that this is not being communicated, and the optics of CCSD is really poor. And then again, today it's really upsetting too, when we get news that we're losing our assistant principal because of budget cuts, essentially, is pretty much what's essentially to be assumed. We lost 17 staff members last year. There was a total of 10 admin, 7 teachers, and now we're losing a vice principal. That's 18 essential staff members over 2 school year periods. And as far as the COSA goes, it is baseline enrollment, but our school doesn't approve for COSA. So we also lost a lot of students that they started from grade K all the way to 4th grade. Parents just happen to move, they're no longer zoned for a school, and guess what? They can't finish at the school they started. And again, all of this news that we're getting is Those are core objects on CCSD, and it's really disappointing, especially when we see our school and we're supporting it. And again, we want to do a lot of fundraising for the school, but there's only so much that the parents can do. So what is CCSD doing to take responsibility so you don't have a school like this that seems like it's failing?
Absolutely. So we talked about this before. Like we have to change the narrative in the community about our schools, and part of what we're doing. And you're lucky because one of the people whose responsibility is to change the narrative is like 3 people behind you. She's gonna raise her hand. Can you raise your hand, Kirsten? So her team is now responsible for helping to make sure that we are sharing the great stories that we have. So already our social media is different than it was 6 months ago. The number of media engagements that we have is different than it was 6 months ago. And she only started 2 months ago, 1 month ago. But in all seriousness, part of her deep responsibility is how do we make sure that we change the narrative? And so we absolutely need not just us here at the board, we're responsible for it, we're taking responsibility. We do want your help too, to help change the narrative. So parents talking to parents. So whatever community circles that you're in, helping to tell other community members about your school. And so Kirsten and her team will do the large work, talking to the LBR, the Review Journal, and to TV stations and on social media. But as you very well know, it is parent to parent that moves things. And so as we begin to be better, we're gonna help our principals also learn how to tell the story of their school so that they are, because everybody thinks my school is great, but the district might not be great, right? So if the principals are really taking control of narratives of their own schools and making sure that they're able to tell stories and share the great work that's happening, then you in your circles are sharing that, and then we as a district are also doing our part, right? It becomes an immovable, like a really strong force in changing that narrative. But you're right, the narrative has not been great, and that's part of our responsibility right now.
See hands.
Matt Winterhahn, once again. So as a candidate for governor of the state of Nevada, I get approached by many teachers, many parents, because they're afraid of retaliation. That's why I'm at the CCSD, that's why I speak out on behalf of many of them, because they don't want to have the retaliation from speaking out themselves. The 2 questions that I have, and that honestly were most brought up about this meeting, is why when they go to these school board meetings, they never see Mr. Johnson, and number 2, they want to know why Lydia has been here less than a year, and she's trying to run for Congressional District 3, which means she would have to abandon the position of the school board. So they want to know those things.
Thank you for the question. I'm so honored to serve. I actually, the night after the election, I woke up with such a heavy weight on my chest to serve, and feeling like everyone's hopes and dreams, honestly, were on my back. And so it's been a privilege to serve, and it's been a privilege to serve my entire life in the Air Force and everything I've done. And so even though I won't be discussing politics here today, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you afterwards, but it has been my truest honor and privilege to serve.
Just in spirit of directness, I have a 9 to 5 that requires me to do travel. And so my travel at times will take me out of state. And so when I'm out of state, I attend the meetings virtually. So for example, on the 27th, my birthday, or maybe the 28th, I attend that meeting virtually. So that's the reason why if I'm not present physically, I'm going to be present virtually. And so I've done as best I can to make sure that I can reduce the amount of work travel that I have. But we have a lot of meetings. We meet twice a month, plus a work session once a month. So that effectively leaves, it's 1 week out of the month where there is no meeting. But my work travel schedule, it will require me to be on the road sometimes 4 days out of a month, or maybe 8 days out of a month. And so they happen to fall on those days. And our work travel generally is Tuesday to Thursday, because we don't try not to travel on Monday or Fridays. And so that's a conflict. But I recognize that it's important to be present. I recognize that it's important to continue to engage. So I do my best so that if I can avoid a work trip, I do it. But I'm certainly always happy to make sure that people know that I am there, I'm present, I've been engaged, I've read materials. And I still need to make sure that I'm able to take care of my family, which my job allows me to do.
Hey, I'm Michael. My children go to Kitty Ward Elementary. We do have a elementary school very close to us, but after beyond that, it's like 3 miles. And I know that elementary is built up. I know it's building up on the 215. I was wondering, and it might not be your question, but what is your team doing to advocate Clark County and the commissioners to make sure that schools are part of the master plan? Because I understand that they have the land and set aside and the school's never built. So that's part one. And second is, I know that you mentioned funding and budgets and that's coming across, it's always a hot topic. But what are you guys doing to advocate for more money from the marijuana tax, from casinos, talking to the governor and going to state legislation?
Thank you for your question. I know lines of communication have been closed for a very long time. And so that was probably one of the biggest reasons why I decided to join, was why are they not talking to each other? Even as simply as traffic safety in front of schools. And so I've been very, very proud to see that our superintendent has reopened those lines of communication. She has been meeting with councilmen. I think she met with the mayor. She's been meeting with as many people, and obviously she has a relationship with Governor Lombardo when she was working under him. And so she's very close to a lot of legislatures and has a lot of working relationships with them. And so I appreciated that she brought that into the table as she came in. One of the things that's just so important is having that communication as far as like the simple things, right? And having them, again, I go back to traffic safety because my district includes Arborview. And so it is very important to make sure that we have that traffic safety available. When it comes to building schools though, when it comes to the municipalities, it's a little different as far as that communication goes. It's more for us, for the funding and the strategic planning of the schools. And so you don't want to build a school if the enrollments are low. So if we build a school and there's low enrollment, then it's setting that school up for failure, to be frank. And so I know there's been a lot of talk about building a school. There, you have high enrollments in this area. Why are we building a school? Well, we have a trajectory of low enrollments coming in. And so what's going to happen in a year or two when we build that school, and now the other schools have stabilized with their enrollments, and now we're going to pull kids away from that school. And so it's kind of a weird balancing act that we have to make sure that we do. So even though they are in communication as far as building the schools, like, with the titling and everything, but they're not in communication as far as the district strategic plan of how we're looking at that. And we have so many people that are so intelligent. They look at these numbers all day long. I don't want to call them nerds, but they kind of did. But they're very intelligent, and they look at these numbers and go, if we put a school here and we're going to be causing and affecting all the schools around them, what are we doing? How are we affecting it? And they don't just look at the public schools, they look at the charter schools, they look at the CTAs, and they say, where are we going to strategically place this school? And that was done for Northwest, that was done for Northeast. All these magnet schools that we have now, that's what they were looking at, is how are we going to offset the balance of high enrollment and moving kids around like that. So, and then you had a third question. I'm trying to retain everybody's questions. They're multi-layered.
How do we advocate for funding?
Oh, you right. Thank you. Thankfully, so advocating for funding is tied to our enrollment. It goes back to how many kids are coming to school, and that's the basics of it. Yes, we do we actually went as a board to Reno. We went down there to Carson City, and we went down to we have a Nevada Board Association, and they advocate for board funding. They advocate for things as an association. But it still comes back down to enrollment rates. It still comes back down to how many kids do we have. So if our enrollment rates are going down, then the budget numbers are going to keep going down. And so again, it's that balancing act of how are we going to redirect our resources to making sure we're not building too many schools to where now we can't build them. So we want to make sure that we balance out taxpayer money correctly and be good stewards of that. So, thank you. I know there's a lot of questions. Okay.
My name is Mike Marino from Indian Springs, First Secretary Service. This is about, Indian Springs was slated to get a new school starting in 2025. It got pushed back 2 years. And when the district came out to Indian Springs and talked to us about the school, they were going to build us less than what we physically have now. And I know you were there, but you weren't in charge of that meeting, you were listening. And the people that came out had no answers for all the questions that were asked. They had no plans of foot size, they really gave us no answers. And now here we're delayed for other schools that are going to be built on the Northwest. They had false information about the base not growing, about the town not growing. So a lot of that stuff that was said at the meeting was not true. And the people are upset when there's things you can do, save the Thunderdome, rehab the theater, and then we would have pretty much everything we have now, plus the new school you're gonna give. Because you know when they build that, you run the meeting, it's smaller than what we have. And extracurricular activities for all the things that Clark County provides for the kids from middle school all the way up. When you take a giant gym and turn it into a small one and get rid of that, you don't have enough room. Kids are practicing in the hallway and in classrooms to do their sports and extracurricular activities. And if you take away the theater, that takes away a whole program. And the community would like some answers instead of just calling us off. You know, you were at the meeting, and you were good. You're on our side, we know that. But the rest of the district was not listening, and they haven't given us any answers.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. I know I was tied. I feel like I was personally tied to the school, even though I'm trying to be neutral. But my son had attended that school when I was stationed at Creech Air Force Base, so I felt emotionally tied to the school. And during that meeting, what I heard from constituents is that they were not happy with the plans that were currently in development for the school. So the school hadn't started construction, but it was the development plans that they were not happy with. They all, from what I understood again, is that the community agreed, we do need a new school, there are things that need to be fixed, there are things that are run down, but we don't like the plans that architecturally are not suffice for that community. And so I know when we went back, and that was before Superintendent Ebert had joined us. So, man, I'm trying to get a little bit of the dates blurred, but I think maybe at 1 or 2 meetings later, we had decided to pause all new builds, which included Indian Springs, and we decided to pause for a year to wait for our new superintendent. And so even though that gave no answers to Indian Springs, that allowed time to reassess, to have the new superintendent come in and kind of do a reassessment on what is the strategic plan for this school and all schools in the district. And so I appreciate your advocacy. I know I'm going to be following up with that, and I can definitely give you an update on what's happened. I know we've recently she just completed her 100 days, and then I think they're going to be announcing their strategic plan. There's something coming up in November that they keep telling me about. So we're going to be, I know Kirsten's out there looking at me, but yeah, we're going to be having more of an update for that. But yeah, for Indian Springs, I know that was really important to the community. A lot of people are tied to that school. And it's more than just a school, just like Lundy, you know, it is more than just a school.
That's a part of it.
So.
You guys spend $8 million on Lundy for 8 kids.
Yeah.
And that's part of Indian Springs, the budget, they work together hand in hand to spend that kind of money for Lundy. And Indian Springs needs just a little bit more to rehab our theater and save our Thunderdome. Absolutely. It does not make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the school, you know, I even for my own son to be there, it needs a little more than tender love and care. It needs you know, you guys do deserve a school that is the same as schools down here. So we shouldn't just have to rebuild, or I don't want to say man, if I use these words, they'll use it against me. But you do need a new school. Indian Springs needs a school, and if we can preserve Thunderdome, we can preserve it. If not, then they need a new Thunderdome. But we need to be able to do a school that fits the community and fits the students and fits everybody. So it shouldn't need to just be, you know, what's best for us or what we think is right. And so I know we've moved in a different direction since Superintendent Ebert has joined us, so I know that's coming soon. And I know it's hard on the community because it's a pause, right? So that's no answers. And I'm here to say that is, I can see why everybody's upset with that, because you do deserve answers. There should be answers. I don't want to give you an answer and it be incorrect and then say, oh, you gave me this answer, but it was, I don't want to give you anything to fluff you up to say, oh, just to say something. That's not right either. So I want to give you an accurate answer. I want to make sure that the community knows that we're still waiting to see what direction we're going in, but I've been waiting on the superintendent's and their strategic SWOT analysis.
We just don't want less than what we have now, like building a new school and giving us classrooms when it's the whole community using that facility and the extracurricular activities. You can't do it in one little theater or one little gym when you have two now. So that's the biggest push.
And thank you for advocating for them, because I know they have, they do need the school that they have. So we don't want to take a school away. So absolutely. Thank you. And I think it's a SWOT analysis in November is what we're waiting for.
We have 1 minute.
Last one. I'll just let you know first that you're our last questioner. So you're the last one taking a question. I'm just letting you know that you will be the last one taking questions.
Your question's the last, so make it great.
Yeah, no pressure.
I'm Jane, I'm a retired educator, been in Las Vegas for 4 years and been following the district. And one of my concerns is, and several people have been concerned, that little or nothing has been done in the time I've been here and prior to that about discipline disproportionality for Black students. And in light of having a new superintendent, I'm wondering what the board's commitment is to addressing this issue. When our Black students thrive, all of our students thrive.
Thank you for the question. I think that it's a combination of communicating with our community, so communicating with parents, communicating with our nonprofits, all the way down to communicating with our officers. And making sure that we are giving students every resource they need to making sure that whatever behavior, whatever action is happening, that it doesn't escalate. I know, even in my own young years, I escalated things that I shouldn't have, and it really does become, where do we give our resources? And I know we've recently just had social workers in our CCSD PD team, which has been absolutely great because they right away give resources as far as counselors, even, like a hospitalization, if the student is feeling suicidal, there's so many things that are available now today. But as a board, we're committed to following our state laws. We're committed to giving our resources that the district needs to follow those laws and to follow those protocols.
And I appreciate the question tremendously, not because I'm a Black man, but because I think that if we're going to ensure that all students thrive, that all students need to be treated fairly and with respect in every space. Now, to your question directly, how do we make sure that the disproportionality is addressed? We actually have to make sure that we're looking at it consistently. We have to make sure that as we are talking to the superintendent and holding her accountable, holding to why are our students who, both Black boys and Black girls, being treated differently? And if you're saying, well, they're not being treated, I look at the information and I see at every time that Mr. McPartland brings that to us, it appears to me that those students may be being treated differently, not because someone is doing it consciously, but if the numbers are the numbers, and every single time you look at the numbers, one group of students is out proportionately being suspended, or expelled, they must be treated differently. I don't believe that Black students are acting any differently than other students inside of our classrooms. There must be something that the adults are doing that we haven't yet been able to address. And so it's not, again, this to me means we need to have more conversations around how are we perceiving actions, how are we preparing our teachers to be engaging with students so that as they come in, the implicit biases are being addressed. Again, the way we as a board hold the superintendent accountable is by asking for that information and asking to make sure that it's going down every single time that we see it. And what I really appreciate is that Superintendent Ebert is 100% committed to making sure that this disproportionality is addressed and swiftly, because there is no reason that we should see Black students being expelled and suspended at 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the rates of other students. In particular, when we don't see them academically achieving at 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the rate of the other students. In fact, it's the opposite. And so for me, if we're going to, as a board, make sure that rate goes down, we have to look at it consistently. You have to make sure that we're asking the questions. And then we have to make sure that the responses that we're receiving are in alignment with the actions we see happening across the district. I'm really glad that Superintendent Ebert has taken action. I'm glad that she's made it a point of hers to address this topic, and she's addressed it head on. She said it publicly, she said privately, this is not right, I'm going to fix it. And so that's all I can ask of her, is to take responsibility for it and then to start taking action. The next step is we have to see results that align with the action. So in addition to that, she's going to ask, how can you help? How can you come in and provide supports for that? So she doesn't think she's going to do it alone. She doesn't think that her team is going to do it alone. She knows it's going to be a community effort. And so if you have suggestions, if you have things that have worked in other places that you've seen, I know you've been here for 4 years now, bring that to her as a suggestion. Talk about, help her create the plans. She wants community involvement in making sure that these things get better, because she knows we only get better when we work together.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And thank you so much for everybody coming. We do have a couple minutes that we'll spend off camera, I think, but so far this is great. I know we were building the plane and flying the plane as we were building it. So it was a great experience for me, and hopefully Trustee Johnson as well. And we look forward to doing this all around the district. So there's going to be a calendar out there for other trustees going and doing this. And they'll be doing it all around in their areas. So I'm really appreciative that everybody came out and advocated for their student, for their school, for the community. And it's been a real privilege to be here. So thank you so much.